Some of Detroit's lowest income and highest crime areas can be found along East 8 Mile Road. Just east of Shaner on 8 Mile, inside the shell of a closed grocery store, sits the Academy of Warren, a kindergarten through 8th grade charter school. In 2017, the New York Times Magazine featured the Academy in an in-depth cover story portraying Michigan's schools as some of the worst in the country. Nationally, Michigan ranked last in terms of improvements in student proficiency. In August 2018, Oronde Kearney arrived at the Academy as the school's new leader. He had not seen the Academy before his first day of work.
My first impression is when I pulled up to the building, I didn't know what the hell it was. I was like, this is bad. And walking in, I can see a skeleton of a school.
So I don't want to say prison, but the walls were plain, there was no color.
The first thing that I noticed was that my classroom didn't have any windows, so it definitely was very tight, very hot, very chaotic.
Kearney quickly knew he needed help, so he contacted Richard Murray of Equity Schools, a Chicago firm working nationally to develop schools. Murray agreed to visit the Academy and meet with Kearney.
It was just acres of old asphalt, a few cars, and some remarkably ugly buildings. And the inside was even worse. It was just row after row of windowless rooms on bare double-loaded corridors. It was disorienting, it was confining, it really was a warehouse. And then there were the things that were missing. There was no library, there was no art, there was no music, there were no science labs, there was no gym, there was no color, and there was no natural light.
First thing Rick said, you have this big campus, think about what you can do.
I said, imagine the school in the future. What do you want people to think and feel as they walk in? And he said, safe, welcome, comfortable, family-oriented, warm, excitement, wonder, and wow.
Places where the kids can come in from 6 and leave at 6 to have, that great safe haven where they not want to leave school, so to keep the kids off the streets. That's the most important thing.
Clearly what was needed were enriching learning environments as diverse and complex as the learners who were there.
By fall of 2018, the Academy engaged Equity Schools to plan and implement its transformation. But without any access to new government funding, grants, or fundraising, Murray and his team knew they would need to be creative to make the project possible.
We knew Oronde wanted a gymnasium, but instead of just figuring out what do we need for a gymnasium, we did something counterintuitive. We said, let's make a field house instead of just a gymnasium. When you go bigger, not only is that better for the kids in the education, it brings in a new revenue stream during non-school hours. Number two, the Academy already had some modest debt, and we realized that we could restructure that and take some money from that restructuring and apply that to the improvements we did want to make. Then the third part was really critical. At this stage, we had a rough idea of how much money we thought we'd be able to use. Now, what could we do with that? How do we get the most out of that? And that required a very smart design.
We were very selective with what we did here, so we saved a lot of money everywhere we could and then put our funds towards the more fun, exciting, kind of unexpected stuff.
Once conceptual plans and financial projections were ready, Equity Schools began approaching potential lenders, but were disappointed by the responses.
Over the first few months, they were getting rejections, and some of them were without explanation, and some of them were for some reason tied to the students' test scores.
If standardized test scores are low, might that mean that this student community could use more resources in order to catch up? It felt so backwards because it sort of made me think of a farmer who looking at his crops and saying that he'll water them once they start growing.
Equity Schools needed to make a stronger case for the lenders to show how environmental factors affected the Academy's students.
We looked at natural light, indoor air quality, physical activity, nutrition, and access to green spaces. What we found in the research on this was more dramatic than we were expecting. Students with the most daylight in their classrooms were progressing 20% faster on math tests and 26% faster on reading tests than students with the least light in their classrooms. We were able to reassure potential lenders that we're not just making the school prettier, we're intentionally adjusting environmental factors that we can control in order to make it easier for kids to achieve in school.
With a compelling educational and financial plan, Equity Schools brought in Ziegler, a national bond underwriter specializing in financing charter schools.
When I had the opportunity to visit the school, that was a real eye-opener. I saw students that wanted something better. But I also saw them in a dilapidated grocery store. And so it was real clear to me that A, those children badly needed that facility, and B, once they got it, this project was going to be just an incredible success.
Ziegler began its process while the architects worked on finishing the drawings.
Our estimates were that this would be about a $7 million project. And so the architects came back with the completed plans. We gave those plans to the contractor, who contacted me and said, well, I have some bad news. It's $8 million. And I thought, okay, we can work with that. I mean, that's close. We'll make some adjustments. We're 7, 8. He said, no, you don't understand. It's $8 million over the $7 million. That was shocking.
I remember Rick calling me stating that they claimed that the budget was far exceeding, and I was in a complete shock.
We desperately did not want to contribute to a legacy of letting people down or making promises and breaking them.
I spent an incredible amount of time staring at pages and pages of numbers and drawings and going back over and trying to figure out where this could possibly have been so completely wrong. And the more I looked, the more I realized there's an awful lot of doors all of a sudden, and there were a lot of sprinklers, and I mean, a wall would be 1 foot over from where it was supposed to be. That triggered changing the ceiling and changing the floor and changing the heating and cooling. And all of a sudden, the cost had just ballooned. Those plans had gone to the contractor, and we wound up with a $15 million project.
The design team redrew the plans within a few weeks, and the contractor returned with the lower budget Equity Schools had originally planned.
My sanity returned. I exhaled a little bit. We were going to make this go. And then the pandemic hit.
Florida, Georgia, and Mississippi joining at least 42 other states ordering residents to stay at home.
If we stay on our current trajectory, over 70% of our people could get infected with COVID-19.
The Dow and the S&P 500's worst day in 33 years, and the Nasdaq's biggest one-day plunge ever.
Everybody in America, frankly, was in some form of panic. And the issue that it presented for us was that investors were not able to invest. And it really, there's a period of time there for a few weeks where it was sort of like, where is the light at the end of the tunnel?
With the whole world in a holding pattern, the Academy of Warren community found it hard to remain hopeful the school renovation would actually happen.
The playground was something that we had promised we were going to be able to get done whether or not we were able to finance the larger project. So it was important to be able to show the community that we were still getting things done and moving forward.
Even though most of the project was at a standstill, the Academy of Warren students saw construction move forward on the school's very first student-designed playground.
We knew early on that we wanted Leathers and Associates to do this, and it's really fun. They send an architect out to the school to do design sessions with the kids. So the playground they have here is custom, and kids designed it themselves, and then the community came together to build it.
The Academy of Warren financing closed in July of 2020. It was one of the very first bond issues that was able to get out into the market to provide funding for charter schools.
2 years had passed since Equity Schools first began working with the Academy of Warren. 2 long years of planning, setbacks, and a global pandemic. But major construction finally began with the removal of 5 acres of asphalt, while interior walls were demolished to open up the formerly confining space. And by the start of the 2021 school year, 110,000 square feet of existing buildings were renovated, and an all-new 35,000 square foot field house was erected.
I was totally mind blown. First of all, it's enormous.
It's just a visually pleasing school. I really enjoy just walking in the hallways, but also the functionality of it all.
The most fulfilling thing about this project is looking at the faces of these students when they came back, and the gratitude on the staff, seeing the children on the playground, and them having pride in something that's theirs.
The skylights, which allows the natural light to come in, which is stimulating.
You've got parents who send their children here who are excited that their children get daylight, in their classrooms.
Really the most cost-effective way for us to bring natural light into the building, which was a big goal of ours on this project, was just to cut out skylights above the learning street and over all of the sort of shared spaces. We also installed a lot of interior windows.
The windows in the classroom does allow us to get natural light in and see the kids out there in the learning street at the same time.
The learning street is one of the coolest things that we put in here. It's basically a huge meandering corridor through the center of the school with a bunch of different kinds of diverse spaces within it. So, group reading spaces, there's like a presentation arena, a lot of different sort of breakout spaces for kids to work on their own or with others. And along that learning street, we organized all the classrooms as age-based neighborhoods.
Plenty of opportunities to take your children out of the classroom, into the hallway, into these beautiful spaces so that they can experience learning on a different level, in a different environment.
It's more inviting to learn organically, so the kids don't actually feel like they're being forced to do an assignment, or they can go out there and just kind of do what they want to do, and they're learning without even realizing it.
My favorite part is the common area. We could just study in here. It's not always loud in here.
The learning street was probably the most exciting for me. It felt like home, and now I guess the greatest challenge is just, trying to figure out how to give everybody a chance to be out there because they're constantly asking.
What I love is that there's a black box theater where the kids can go and have performing arts and different things like that. Even the lunchroom is different.
Got the rock climbing wall in there, and I love the high top tables for them and the little banquettes. It's like they're at a little luncheon every day, so they love it.
The process of going out and getting into the garden, moving the soil, the earth, and planting seeds and nurturing them and watching them grow, that's the experience in itself.
Look at right there, baby peppers.
We've got an athletic field out there, a new basketball/tennis court.
And let's not talk about the field house. Oh my goodness, my older children are a little jealous.
The new field house is used every day, including evenings and weekends, for sports and large assemblies. As other schools and community groups rent the space for events, the Academy now has a growing reputation as a high-quality recreational destination, while generating added revenues. In its inaugural season of play, the Academy won its first basketball championship.
The kids have a place to come that feels comfortable. They feel proud, to come to a school that is beautiful.
They want to stay when it's time for dismissal. A lot of them enrolled in after-school activities this year, and when I get here in the morning now, there's always lots of kids here already.
I really see it as a thriving environment that can be enjoyed by all, not just the student community, but also areas surrounding can come in and utilize these spaces.
Everyone in this community deserves this building.
It's almost like a college campus.
In the next 10 years, we hope to be one of the top 20 schools in Michigan. that is pushing education forward so that it prepares them not only for high school but also for college.
With the physical transformation now complete, the positive changes for the Academy's students, staff, and surrounding community have just begun. With natural light flowing through its hallways, the future has never been brighter for the students of the Academy of Warren.
When they come to school, we have to figure out a way to combat all the things that they have seen and all the things that they have heard, and just try and instill an old school spirit. We just want to prepare them in the best way that we can. And I think that's the main objective of any teacher. Did I love them, and did they learn something?
A big part of why it succeeded was just that we had a lot of people who really cared about getting this done. And at the end of the day, it's not that complicated, it's not that expensive. And we really feel like there's a great need for projects like this in so many communities all over the United States.
To me, this story is about the right people who really care getting together and deciding to do it themselves. They're not waiting for government funding or foundations or donors to do it. They're going to do it themselves now because it's overdue for their community.
Anything is possible. When you want something, go for it and do it. It takes a village to do it if everyone is in unity.
Believe in yourself. Believe in your partner. Stay focused. Keep grinding. Just keep on believing and believe that it will happen.
I want to be a famous gymnast. I want to be a teacher. If you want to come down to ALW, you might have a good time.
When I grow up, I want to be a firefighter, and if that doesn't work, maybe a basketball player.
I want to be, when I grow up, a fashion designer. A scientist, because they do really cool things.
It's between acting and being a doctor.
I want to be an NBA player.
Oh, I know. I want to be a police girl.